Right now, while you sit still and breathe, your body is quietly preparing for war. Not a metaphorical war somewhere far away, but a real one, inside your skin, blood, and lungs. Most of the time, you never notice it, because the battles are won before they reach your awareness. But if a single rusty nail breaks your skin, or one infected breath enters your lungs, everything changes. A peaceful human body can become a battlefield in seconds. And the strange thing is that your survival depends on an army that is both brilliant and terrifying. It kills without mercy, destroys its own soldiers, sacrifices innocent cells, and sometimes burns the battlefield to save the body. This army is your immune system, one of the most complex defense networks known in biology. To understand what it does for you, you have to shrink down to the size of a cell. From that scale, your body is not a person anymore. It is a warm continent of flesh, filled with rivers, tunnels, chambers, and hidden cities. Your blood becomes a rushing red ocean, your tissues become crowded streets, and your organs become living factories. To bacteria outside your body, this place is almost perfect. It is warm, wet, full of nutrients, and protected from the harsh world outside. In other words, your body is not just alive, it is valuable territory. For billions of years, life has been shaped by a simple evolutionary problem. Some organisms had to gather resources from the world around them. Others found a darker shortcut. Enter another living thing and steal what was already there. That shortcut helped create an arms race that has never truly stopped. Every living creature became either a fortress, an invader, or both. And your body is one of the most heavily defended fortresses ever built. The first border is your skin. It looks calm from the outside, but to microbes, it is a hostile desert. Your skin is dry, salty, acidic, and constantly shedding pieces of itself like a moving floor. Deep below the surface, new skin cells are born and slowly pushed upward. As they rise, they fill themselves with keratin, harden, flatten, and lose the machinery that kept them alive. By the time they reach the surface, they are no longer living citizens. They are dead armor. Layer after layer of these dead cells forms a tough shield that most invaders never cross. Even the shield is armed. Tiny antimicrobial molecules patrol the surface, damaging many microbes before they can settle in, so most bacteria never even make it to the real body beneath. No wall is perfect forever. Imagine you are walking outside and step hard onto a rusty nail hidden in the grass. The metal tears through the dead outer wall and punches into living tissue. To your cells, this is not a small accident. It is a disaster falling from the sky. The nail crushes cells, tears open tiny blood vessels, and leaves a wet tunnel into your body. Soil bacteria, dust, and debris are carried deep into a place they were never supposed to reach. For the bacteria, this is the opening they needed. They find warmth, fluid, broken cells, and a sudden feast of exposed nutrients. They begin dividing, spreading, and trying to turn the wound into a colony. But the damaged cells do not die silently. As they rupture, they release chemical alarm signals into the surrounding tissue. These signals are not thoughts, and they are not screams in the human sense, but inside the microscopic world, they mean one thing: breach. Nearby immune cells sense the alarm and begin moving toward the wound. The first response does not wait to identify the exact enemy. It simply attacks anything that looks dangerous. This is the innate immune system, your fast, ancient, blunt force defense. One of the first major defenders to arrive is the macrophage. A macrophage is enormous compared to many bacteria, like a living tank rolling through ruined streets. It follows chemical trails from damaged tissue, dead cells, and bacterial surfaces. When it reaches the wound, it begins swallowing enemies whole. It stretches its membrane around a bacterium, seals it inside, and drags it into an internal chamber. Then the chamber fills with destructive enzymes and reactive chemicals. The invader is broken down into pieces and digested. A macrophage can kill many bacteria this way, but the wound may contain too many invaders. The bacteria are multiplying while the defenders are still arriving, so the macrophages raise the alarm higher. They release stronger chemical signals that change the behavior of the blood vessels nearby. The vessels widen, become leakier, and allow more fluid and immune cells to enter the tissue. On the human scale, you feel this as redness, heat, swelling, and pain. It feels like something is going wrong. But much of that discomfort is your body deliberately turning the wound into a controlled war zone. The next soldiers arrive in huge numbers: neutrophils. Neutrophils are short-lived shock troops built for speed and destruction. They pour out of the bloodstream and crawl toward the strongest chemical signals. Once inside the wound, they attack with a dangerous lack of elegance. They swallow bacteria, release toxic granules, and flood the area with chemicals that damage living things nearby. They save tissue by destroying tissue. And when some neutrophils are overwhelmed, they use an even stranger weapon. They can unravel their own DNA and throw it outward like a sticky net. This net traps bacteria. exposes them to other immune weapons, and turns the neutrophil's death into a final trap. The wound becomes crowded with dead bacteria, dead immune cells, broken tissue, and leaking fluid. That mixture is ugly, painful, and necessary. Meanwhile, another defense system is already moving through the blood. It is called complement, and it is not made of living cells. It is a network of proteins that can mark microbes, call in immune cells, and sometimes punch holes in bacterial membranes. Complement is dangerous because it works like a chain reaction. When the right protein sticks to the wrong surface, more proteins rapidly join it. The bacterium becomes marked as a target. Some complement proteins form molecular attack structures that can damage the bacterial outer wall. Others act like flags, making bacteria easier for macrophages and neutrophils to grab. Together, macrophages, neutrophils, inflammation, and complement can stop many infections before they become serious. But this first defense has a weakness. It is fast, but not very precise. Some bacteria have capsules, shields, toxins, or tricks that help them resist brute force. Some multiply quickly enough to keep the battle from ending. If they escape the wound and enter the bloodstream, the problem can become life-threatening. So your body needs something more advanced than rage. It needs intelligence. While the first responders fight, another cell is doing a quieter job. The dendritic cell moves through the damaged tissue like a battlefield investigator. It does not exist mainly to slaughter everything in front of it. It collects evidence. It swallows pieces of bacteria, cuts them into fragments, and displays those fragments on its surface. These fragments are called antigens. They are like pieces of an enemy uniform carried back to headquarters. Once the dendritic cell has gathered enough evidence, it leaves the battlefield. It enters the lymphatic system, a slow network of vessels that drains fluid from tissues. Its destination is a lymph node. A lymph node is not just a lump of tissue. It is a crowded security checkpoint where immune information is tested, compared, and acted on. Inside, millions of T cells wait. Most of them will never be useful for this infection. Each T cell carries a receptor with a particular shape, and that shape recognizes only certain molecular patterns. The powerful part is that your body makes an enormous variety of these receptors. It does this by rearranging genetic instructions almost like shuffling a deck of cards. The result is a vast library of possible immune weapons. Somewhere in that library may be a T cell that recognizes this exact bacterial fragment, but this system is dangerous. Randomly creating immune weapons means some of them could recognize your own body. A defense system that attacks the enemy is useful. A defense system that attacks your heart, brain, or lungs is a nightmare. That is why young T cells are tested before they are allowed into the main immune army. This testing happens in the thymus, a small organ in the chest. There, developing T cells are exposed to signals that represent the body's own tissues. If a T cell reacts too strongly to the self, it is eliminated. Most never graduate. The few that survive become part of the body's adaptive defense. They are not perfect, but they are safer and far more precise. Back in the lymph node, the dendritic cell begins its search. It moves from T cell to T cell, presenting the bacterial fragment again and again. For a long time, nothing happens. Then one T cell fits. The receptor recognizes the fragment, and a sleeping weapon wakes up. That single match changes the entire infection. The activated T cell begins multiplying, creating an army of copies with the same useful recognition. Some of these T cells become commanders that travel back toward the wound. They reach exhausted macrophages and boost their killing power with targeted chemical signals. The macrophages, which were struggling moments before, become far more effective. But the T cells also do something even more important. They help awaken B cells. B cells are living antibody factories, but each one is selective. Like T cells, each B cell has a surface receptor shaped for certain targets. When the right B cell meets the right antigen and receives help from the right T cell, it transforms. It becomes a plasma cell. And plasma cells produce antibodies. Antibodies are tiny Y-shaped proteins built to stick to specific parts of an invader. They do not think, chase, or hate. They simply bind. But binding can be devastating. Antibodies can block bacteria from attaching to cells, clump invaders together, and mark them for destruction. They can make complement attacks easier and turn invisible enemies into obvious targets. The best B cells also refine their antibodies over time. Through mutation and selection, they can produce versions that bind more tightly to the enemy. This is not instant magic. It takes time, energy, and risk. But once the right plasma cells are active, the battlefield changes. Antibodies flood through the blood and leak into the infected tissue. Bacteria that once slipped through the chaos are now tagged, blocked, and surrounded. Macrophages grab them more easily. Neutrophils overwhelm them more efficiently, complement marks, and damages them more aggressively. The infection begins to collapse. Over the next days, the last invaders are cleared away. The alarm signals fade. The blood vessels tighten back toward normal. Many immune cells die on purpose, because soldiers that refuse to stand down can damage the body they protected. The skin seals the wound, scar tissue begins forming, and the battlefield disappears under healing flesh. From your point of view, it was just a painful puncture. Inside your body, it was an invasion stopped before it became a disaster. But bacteria are only one kind of enemy. Some invaders do not try to conquer from the outside. They hide inside your own cells. This is what makes viruses so dangerous. A virus is not a cell. It does not eat, breathe, or grow the way living cells do. It is more like a genetic package wrapped in a shell, waiting for the right door to open. Imagine sitting in a crowded room while someone nearby coughs. Tiny droplets drift through the air, carrying influenza viruses too small for you to feel. You inhale, and some of them enter the wet passages of your respiratory system. Your lungs are not defenseless. They are lined with mucus, moving fluids, immune cells, and delicate barriers designed to trap invaders. Many viruses are caught and removed before they can do anything. But infection does not require every virus to succeed. It only takes enough of them reaching the right cells. One influenza virus touches a cell lining your airway. The surface of that cell is covered with receptors, which normally help it interact with the body around it. The virus carries surface proteins that can attach to some of these receptors. The cell mistakes the contact for something normal and pulls the virus inside. That is the first terrible difference between bacteria and viruses. Bacteria often fight in the open tissue. Viruses break into the houses of your own citizens and turn them into factories. Once inside, the influenza virus releases its genetic instructions. The cell's machinery begins reading those instructions and building viral parts. The infected cell may still look normal from the outside, but inside, its factory floor has been taken over. New viral pieces are copied, assembled, and released to infect more cells nearby. At first, this can happen quietly. No fever, no cough, no dramatic warning. Just a growing number of hijacked cells in the dark, wet landscape of your airways. But cells are not helpless rooms waiting to be robbed. They contain sensors that detect suspicious genetic material and signs of viral activity. When an infected cell realizes something is wrong, it can release interferons. Interferons are chemical warning signals sent to nearby cells. They tell the neighborhood to prepare for invasion. Healthy cells that receive the warning change their behavior. They slow parts of their own protein production, activate antiviral defenses, and become harder for viruses to exploit. This is a brutal strategy. Your body sacrifices comfort and efficiency to slow the spread. The infected tissue becomes a city under emergency lockdown. The virus, meanwhile, is not passive. Many viruses carry tools that interfere with cellular alarms, delay warning signals, or hide from detection. So the first stage of a viral infection is a race. Can the virus spread faster than the tissue can warn itself? Can the infected cells sound the alarm before they become factories for the next wave? This race is fought silently inside millions of microscopic rooms. Eventually, the damage becomes too large to hide. Cells die, debris builds up, and immune cells in the lungs sense that something is seriously wrong. Inflammation rises again. But this time the battlefield is more delicate. The lungs are built for gas exchange, not war. When fluid, dead cells, and immune debris collect there, breathing becomes harder. You cough to clear the wreckage. Your throat burns because the lining is inflamed. Your muscles ache because immune signals are spreading through the whole body. Your fever rises because your body is changing its internal conditions to make viral spread harder. Fever does not simply cook viruses like food. It is part of a wider stress response that can slow pathogens and boost immune activity. This is why being sick feels so personal. The pain is not just caused by the invader. Much of it is caused by your own defense system turning the body into hostile territory. But the innate response still cannot solve the whole problem. A virus hiding inside cells requires a more precise weapon. Once again, dendritic cells collect viral fragments and carry them to the lymph nodes. Once again, the adaptive immune system begins searching through its enormous library. This search takes time, and that delay is why many infections get worse before they get better. While you lie in bed feeling weak, your body is trying to identify the exact shape of the enemy. Then the match is found. T cells that recognize influenza fragments begin multiplying. Some help coordinate the immune response and assist B cells in producing better antibodies. Others become killer T cells, designed to find infected body cells and eliminate them. A killer T cell patrols tissue by checking signals displayed on the surfaces of cells. Healthy cells display pieces of their normal internal proteins. Infected cells may display viral fragments, tiny clues that something inside has gone wrong. When a killer T cell finds the right clue, it does not rescue the infected cell. It orders it to die. This sounds cruel, but it is necessary. A hijacked cell that survives can keep producing viruses. A hijacked cell that dies takes the factory down with it. At the same time, B cells become plasma cells and release antibodies shaped for influenza. These antibodies bind to viral surface proteins, including the parts the virus uses to enter cells. A virus covered in the right antibodies becomes much less able to infect anything. It can be trapped, clumped, cleared, and destroyed before it reaches another cell. Now the battle turns. Killer T cells remove infected factories. Antibodies block free viruses. Macrophages clean up the wreckage. Inflammation slowly falls as the enemy loses places to hide. Your fever breaks, your breathing clears, and the exhausted tissue begins repairing itself. But the most important part of the story happens after the battle. Your immune system does not erase everything and start from nothing. Some T cells and B cells become memory cells. They remain behind like veterans who remember the shape of the enemy. If the same or a very similar invader returns, the response can begin faster. Antibodies can be produced sooner. T cells can react with less delay. The enemy that once needed days to identify may be recognized before it gains momentum. This is the principle behind immune memory. It is also why vaccination can train the immune system without forcing the body through the full danger of disease. Your body learns the enemy's outline before the real invasion arrives. But even immune memory is not perfect. Some viruses change their surface shapes over time. Some bacteria hide, resist, or evolve new defenses. The war is never permanently finished. It only becomes more prepared. And that is the strange beauty of your immune system. It is not clean, gentle, or perfectly controlled. It is a living compromise between protection and self-destruction. Too weak, and invaders spread through you. Too strong, and your own tissues become the target. Every day, your body walks that narrow line without asking for your permission. It burns, seals, marks, traps, remembers, kills, and repairs. It sacrifices millions of cells so that the larger organism can keep breathing. You are alive not because your body is peaceful. You are alive because inside you, peace is defended by constant, controlled violence. Long after this sentence ends, that invisible war will still be happening, quietly, relentlessly, and entirely for you.